Welcome to the first video for climate topic 3, climate action. So this video is a content discussion video. So you will need to finish the entire video before you move on to your textbook to consolidate the information on both sources. I would like to repeat, this is important that you note that the video alone is not sufficient as it doesn't cover the full content of the chapter. You have to refer to your textbook for final consolidation and some additional discussion points. So for the first part of the topic on climate action, we will be looking at these few ideas. Okay, basically we'll be looking at how climate action helps achieve sustainable development. Subsequently, we will look at how it varies across places, how effective mitigation and adaptation strategies help communities' resilience against climate change. So in total, the section on climate action will cover these 4 general areas. So let's begin. Now, how does climate action actually help achieve sustainable development? To answer this, we need to analyze 2 main concepts in this. Number 1, what exactly is sustainable development? Number 2, then what is climate change? So how can that then help you move forward and achieve your ideal and your goal of having sustainable development? So keep in mind, climate change is real. Okay, there may be many things that you do see come across on your various social media platforms and even some news articles from wherever you may get your news from that claim otherwise, but climate change is real. Okay, the rate of acceleration is so fast that you can actually find people who are alive now in this day and age who can tell you conclusively that, oh yes, they themselves experience a change in the climatic conditions in an annual and basis from when they were young all the way now. Who are these people we're talking about? They will probably be your grandparents. So when you're looking at climatic change, what does it actually involve, right? So it simply means that your climatic conditions are unpredictable. They no longer follow original trends that were consistent and predictable. So you will have variations. Bear in mind, this is variations. This is not only increase. Climate change for different areas morph in the form of different experiences. So it could be temperature change, it could be humidity change, it could be precipitation change, it could be duration, it could be intensity, right? But there is change. So also keep in mind when you're looking at climate, you are looking at patterns over 30 years, which is why I mentioned that the people who would experience or who will be able to tell you conclusively that they have gone through what they perceive to be climate change will be the elders, people who are a bit more older, in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s and beyond, right? Because you track climate over 30 years. Weather is what the elements that we are looking at, okay? So once again, these are your weather elements that we have gone through in topic 1 and topic 2. So what exactly is climate change, right? You can go to the Geography Singapore YouTube channel, look through the climate change playlist for topic 3, climate action, and you will be able to view through this video. Subsequently, there are other videos that will also be in the playlist, so you also do need to go and view those videos. Okay. What is climate action? Climate action is the implemented proposals and plans by countries that step up and try to deal with this. So the main reason for having climate action is they hope to mitigate the impact of climate change. Now bear in mind, the word mitigation here has a double barrel meaning. So mitigation on the positive side means they want to take action, but it doesn't mean that they can resolve the issue. It's just to mitigate or make less serious the impact of this thing. Right. So when you're looking at climate action, what does climate action then hope to do then? Okay, basically it hopes to produce community resilience. So your community itself is able better to resist, to deal with, and after they the impact of climate change has struck you, better recover. Okay, so resilience isn't just fighting off the climate change and not getting affected by it. Sometimes, it's also how you bounce back after the incident has happened and how you recover. So come back to your topic one. Okay, we talked about this sustainable development. What exactly is it? There are three wings. For it to be truly sustainable, you do need to look at all three areas. So where's climate change? Climate change is in your environment. So second video, please go and watch your second video subsequently, or if you want to find out a bit more how about climate change and how it can impact you, the tiny URL here you see on the screen can also lead you to that video. Now, in terms of climate action strategies, there are two broad types of strategies that we're looking at. Okay, so you see a Venn diagram at the bottom left of this screen. I'll cover a little bit more about that in a moment, but largely you need to understand that there are two main types of strategies. Okay, there are mitigation strategies and then there are adaptation strategies. Okay, the approach to these strategies is a little different, but basically there are strategies that help you to deal with this ever-changing climate. So when you're looking at mitigation strategies, what we're looking at? We're looking at things that can hopefully reduce, slow down, or enhance your ability to deal with climate change. Okay, so don't get confused. You're trying to reduce the impact of climate change, trying to slow down the impact of climate change, but you're also trying to enhance your ability to deal with climate change. So things like reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, okay, strategies that lead to this are mitigation strategies that slow down climate change. Okay, what would be an enhancement strategy? Would be something that enhances carbon sinks. So, for example, if you plant mangroves, right, you go to Pulau Ubin, you see that Pulau Ubin is undergoing a massive mangrove reforestation project. Okay, many of the southern islands in Singapore are all doing this. Why do we plant mangroves? Because mangroves are amazing in terms of forming a sponge for carbon. Okay, so they are wonderful carbon sink, and by increasing the amount of mangroves that we have, we're actually enhancing our carbon sink. This is a form of mitigation strategy that Singapore adopts. Okay, adaptation strategies are things that the temperature is continuing to rise. What can we do? We're not able to stop it, so let's learn to live with it. Okay, let's learn to have better design, building design that doesn't require the use of air conditioning all the time. Okay, let's have building design that allows or directs through flow of the wind. Right, let's build our buildings with a north-south facing so that you capture the monsoonal winds. Okay, adjustments to impact. These are all things that allow you to live a life that is less impacted by climate change. So, as promised, what we're looking at in terms of our adaptation and mitigation strategies. So, mitigation, right? Bear in mind, these are some of the things that we can do in yellow. Adaptation, these are the things in blue, right? What we do to learn to live with the harsher, more challenging conditions that climate change has brought about for us. Okay, of course, the green area here doesn't mean that the inflection point of Venn diagram is always the better one. It's the confluence of two factors. So there are also strategies that do both. Okay, they do mitigate as well as there are adaptation strategies that also serve to mitigate climate change. Okay, so this pretty interesting diagram gives you some examples of what are we looking at when we are looking at mitigation, adaptation, and strategies that do both mitigation and adaptation. Okay, so mitigation, once again, what can we look at? We use things like clean energy. These will lower, in the first place, the usage of fossil fuels, and then hopefully reduce the severity of it. Okay, forest regeneration, we talked about that earlier. So geothermal energy is one of the key clean energy sources that some countries have the luxury of harnessing. But geothermal energy requires the presence of volcanic or geothermal movement underneath your country's crustal layer, and it also means that you need to have access to this. So there are countries that do not have access to such things, countries that are landlocked in between the plate boundaries, far away from the plate boundaries. You will not have experienced these kind of geothermal energy usage. So an example that we used to give would be Singapore, because Singapore doesn't really rely on active geothermal sources, so we don't really have the ability to harness this. But with improvements in technology, right, even weaker sources of geothermal energy, different forms of it have been experimented on, and maybe in the future we will be able to harness geothermal energy as well. So once again, this is another video. There's a clearer video on how geothermal energy actually is harnessed. Okay, that is important. Could you please go and view that video as well? Solar energy, right? Singapore is quite big on solar energy in the past 10 years. Okay, we've actually built one of the world's biggest floating solar farms on one of our reservoirs, okay, covering the surface of on the reservoir. So this is a very clean form of energy, harnessing the power from the sun, converting it into electricity for commercial and residential use. So in schools, it was a very big thing for the past 5 to 10 years to install solar energy panels on the rooftops. So your school may have one of these, right? Ask around, and maybe you can go on a learning journey in your school to visit your solar panels. So once again, this video here is found in your Geography Singapore YouTube channel, right, in the playlist for topic 3, climate action. Please go and view this. This is useful. If you don't want to memorize everything, watching a video sometimes help retain some of this important information. Reforestation, the mangrove planting here, earlier on I talked about how Pulau Ubin is undergoing massive reforestation. Senegal in Africa is also going through this mangrove reforestation. So this video here gives you a clear idea of what the planning is like, what actually they do in terms of reforesting, and how does this actually work as a mitigation. Okay, but similarly, if you have family members who have access to learning journey or field trips or day trips organized by the residence committee in your residential area, bringing you to places like Semakau, okay, the landfill site, please sign up, please go, right? The world is out there. And in Semakau itself, there is a large amount of reforested mangroves. So it's a pretty interesting experience as well. Okay, so this is OCBC Mangrove Park, another video, local context on how we are starting to reforest mangroves in Singapore. Okay, moving on to adaptation strategies, right? Once again, these are changes to help us adapt to the climate change. You can think of it like you give up, okay, there's nothing I can do to it, let's just make our life better. Okay, the main tool used in adaptation strategies tend to be technology. Okay, used in 3 ways: to increase production, to increase the comfort level of the humans, and to improve living conditions of humans. Bear in mind, I've mentioned humans twice. Okay? So why do countries need to implement both these things? Most of the time, these are complementary. Okay, one will take a bit more time, the mitigation one, so it's more of a long-term project, right? But if you don't do this, then you can only expect it to get worse, right? Adaptation doesn't resolve the core issues. It doesn't stop, doesn't make it better. It just makes your life a little bit more bearable. Okay, I won't even say it's comfortable. It's just more bearable given the new climatic conditions. So imagine this: if the average temperature in Singapore were to rise by 5 degrees, right, on a typical day by 1 p.m., right, if you're having lessons in your classroom, I believe it will be very unbearable. So an adaptation strategy may be to everybody bring a fan and have your own individual portable fan with you. After 1 p.m., you're allowed to switch on that portable fan. Does it resolve the overall temperature? No, it doesn't. Does it resolve the overall temperature in your classroom? No, it doesn't. Right? But does it make your life a bit more bearable compared to if we didn't have this adaptation strategy? Yes, it does. So keep this in mind. This is a general concept that you have to have in your head when we're looking at mitigation strategies versus adaptation strategies. Right, many times there are issues. There are issues, not even limitations, there are issues with these strategies. So when you're introducing non-native species, or in this case here, most of the time we are looking at things like maybe a non-native food source, or when you're looking at the carbon sink component, right, introducing a non-native plant species. So when you're doing this, right, what you're doing, you're endangering your local indigenous species, right? And in the long run, the ecosystem definitely will be out of sync and you will cause long-term imbalance. Okay, so let's take some time individually to think about this. Mitigation strategies to climate change are more important than adaptation strategies. How would you approach a question like this? What would you list as forms of mitigation strategies that you can explain and qualify its effectiveness? And what are some adaptation strategies that you can list, explain, and qualify its strength and limitations? Okay, what stand will you take? Bear in mind, you should take a stand. Right, you shouldn't sit on the fence. It's quite painful. Right, so you should take a stand. So do this on your own. If you're in class, do this with a table partner. If you're doing this at home, do this on your own. Right, write down 5 sentences. You don't have to key in the tiny URL if you don't want to. If you want to, you can go ahead. So the conclusion for the first video here is this. Please, you have to go away with this understanding that climate change constrains sustainable development. Because when you have climate change, your concept of sustainable, your baseline keeps changing. So when you are looking at producing an area or embarking on sustainable development, climate change is a big spanner in your works, right? So we do need to deal with climate change. We do need to either mitigate or adapt to it so that you can then move on and continue to pursue sustainable development. But having said that, if we are able to truly become sustainable in our development and meeting our developmental needs, climate change should come in control. It should, because your basis for pursuing sustainable development is that it is sustainable, that it can continue in the long run without causing major or causing any impact to your climatic conditions. So I will stop here. Stay tuned for part 2 of the video.